Christina George, only on DTMGoodRadio.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond. I am Christina George, and I am your host, along with my co-host, Renee Chavez. And tonight we're back. You know, it's been a few weeks since we've been able to have a show. I've had a lot of birth of a grandchild and daughter having surgeries, all kinds of craziness. And so for the last couple of weeks, we've been, putting up our past archive shows. So I hope you've enjoyed them. But again, now we are back live and with a great guest and a great friend of mine, Stephen D. Kelly. Many of you know him. He is a radio show host at Revolution Radio, has his own talk show, and is an author. I've had him on my show before, as you guys know, and boys, this man is just a wealth of information. So tonight we're going to be talking about his new books. We're going to be talking about, underground bunkers. We're going to be talking about, different technology. We're going to be talking about UFOs, whatever we can come up with. That's what we're going to talk about today. And if you're interested in calling in, you got a question or a comment on anything that we're talking about, you are more than welcome to call in this evening. I'm not sure if Renee is here. Renee, are you here? Well, maybe he is not here yet, but we'll have Renee as soon as he gets on. But for anybody, as I said, who would like to call in tonight, our call-in number is area code 607-244-6483. All right, Stephen, are you with us?
I'm here. How are you doing?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for joining us again this time on Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond. I know it's been a little while, and I had come across a post that you had a brand new book that just was released.
Well, yeah, to be honest with you, what this is really is it's a re-release of my original book that was out on Lulu. It's gone through a professional editing and modification. The title's been changed, and it's essentially the same book, but it's just in a lot nicer package, and it's a little bit. I've added some material to it, and it's just a little more professional now, and it's out on Amazon, and so that's a much better way to go than the silly Lulu. But not too many people got it the last time around, so for millions of people out there, I guess it's a new book.
Well, I mean, that's true. I know a lot of people.
Okay, well, bottom line, I'm just an average guy that grew up here in Southern California and born here, raised here, and everything else. And I got kind of recruited into the working with these CIA types at a relatively young age when I was naive, and that was my first experience. And things progressed. I got involved with the Ollie North people back before anybody even knew what the NSA was. And that was during the Iran-Contra episode, so I was very much involved in all that nonsense. After having a falling out with those guys, I got involved with the Billy Meyer people, which of course is having to do with the Pleiadians and all that. That was my first exposure to the whole UFO issue. And this progressed and you do have to sell your soul, essentially. And one of the first things they do in the recruitment process, and they all do this, the Masons do this, the Bilderbergers, Templars, they all do this, and what they do is they convince you that you are a superior human and that your fellow humans are something like animals. And obviously that is not something that I could ever accept. And they believe that everybody is expendable. That's kind of the way they believe, and that the rest of us humans are like cattle to be used and abused and cast aside. So clearly, that is not something that I could ever condone. And those people that do go that route, that sell their souls like that, they do it for money, they do it for power, and what's the point? It's I used to have money. Obviously, because of the path I've chosen, I've had to give up just about everything, including my family. Of course, that's all in the book. but yeah, I tell people this all the time, that when you go down this path, don't be surprised when you start losing all your friends and family, and they take away. What can they do? They can't really hurt you. They have to. They use weak people to affect you, but once you realize just how much power you have and how little power they have, there's not much they can do except try to take away your earthly possessions. And once you realize that you don't get what you want, you get what you need, it's really not that hard. But there are times when I miss my home and I miss my family and I miss having lots of money and all the toys and everything else. But I have no regrets, because if I had not done that, I would not be doing what I'm doing today. And I'm reaching, millions of people, and I have lots of followers now, and that's more rewarding than any possessions. Being able to affect other people's lives and to help spread the truth.
Absolutely, and of course, we're probably, at this time is probably the most important when this information is really needed, because people really are waking up, and they really are starting to see, all the arrows, and the neon lights pointing to that we've been, not only lied to, but the things that are going on right underneath our noses that they don't want us to know, and the things that they keep hidden, and all these kind of things. So, I'm with you. I mean, being in this field, putting information out, especially putting truth out, it really can bring you under fire. And, you'll be attacked from any and every angle possible. And you're right, they are going to try to figure you out and attack you mentally every direction. So, if you were to care, a lot about your family, they'll, it'll do something with your family. It's possessions, but again, in the very end, what do all the possessions do for you? I mean, other than just possessions.
Well, it's an anchor. It weighs you down, and I used to, when I had my company, I had a big warehouse, and it was just packed full of, 50 years worth of possessions, and I used to go back in there and look at all that stuff, and I think, how am I ever going to go anywhere with all this stuff, all this junk holding me back? And sure enough, it all went away, and now I'm free to do anything, and what are they going to do? There's nothing left that they can take away from me.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, you're at this point where it's pretty much, what else can they do? I mean, you're going to say what you have to say. I mean, I do know that, say back 10, 15 years ago, it was one of these things that if you were a whistleblower or you were divulging information like this, that you would probably, have a very interesting very planned car accident or a sudden heart attack or things like that. I mean, have you been given a lot of harassment over the years because of what you're doing and the information you're putting out?
Well, that's a really important point, and I know that a lot of people have suffered and then obviously paid the ultimate price because of doing exactly what I'm doing. But I actually had a meeting with some of these Templars a while back, and they flat out told me that they weren't allowed to touch me, and that they said I belong to the Can't Be Killed Club. So
really?
Yeah. So basically, that just means that no, they're not allowed to touch me.
Wow. So that's pretty powerful. Renee, I think I hear Renee in the background. Renee, are you on with us?
Yep, I'm with us. I mean, you.
Great. It's very interesting, for me to hear that, Stephen was put, like on the, do not kill, list or do not bother him. Because, we've heard of many people who, over the years have divulged information that, very quickly disappear or have a nervous breakdown or committed, to an asylum. I mean, we've seen it happen all over the place. So very, very interesting, especially, Stephen, with all the information that you're putting out, because you're not just giving little bits and pieces. Like, this is your life, and you're putting it out there, pretty raw about what you went through and what happened.
Well, I'll tell you, the first time that I really had fear was when I had the falling out with the Ollie North gang, and I basically took them for about $100,000 worth of merchandise, and I thought for sure they were going to kill me because of that. But a year went by and nothing happened, and I kind of realized, they weren't going to do anything. The next big time where I felt really threatened was when we discovered the secret base underneath the Getty Museum out here in L.A., and the day after that information became known, I thought for sure these guys were gonna kill me. As my brother and I were both involved in that, and I remember the day that we learned about it. We had a remote viewer go down and check it out down there, and came back and told us what was down there. And we thought, oh boy, because you can't, even a remote viewer, he goes down there and checks things out. They have armies of psychics that basically are watching for that sort of thing, so you can't get away with it without them knowing. And I thought right away they were going to do something, and basically rather than threaten us, they tried to recruit us, which was kind of bizarre. But the thing about the book that is such a big deal is that I disclose what's underneath the Getty. And, a lot of people talk about Area 51. They talk about Dulce. They talk about the Denver airport, Montauk, places like this. But nobody knew about the base underneath the Getty Museum. That was like the most secret of all their facilities, because it's not a military base. It's not a government property. It's a public property, and it's, in my opinion, the weak link in the house of cards. So by actually publishing the existence of this base and coming out publicly and talking about the satanic rituals and all the nonsense that goes on down there, that was a major challenge to these people. And I'll tell you something is that it's one thing to print it in the book and to go out in public and talk about this. And this is when, I came out in November of 2012 is when I divulged this. And when I went public talking about this, I thought for sure, this is when the book came out originally, and I went public, started, on the circuit talking about it. I mean, if they weren't going to do anything then, they're never going to do anything. And now, if you buy the book, you'll see that I have a photograph of the picture of the Getty Museum right there on the cover of the book. And if that isn't pulling on the tiger's tail, I don't know what is, because obviously, the Getty it's a multi-billion-dollar institution. They certainly have the wherewithal, the resources and the legal resources to destroy me if they want to. But the thing is that they can't even say anything about it, because if they even come out publicly and address this issue at all, it's just going to verify what I've been saying. And if they want to sue me over this, then they're going to open themselves up to scrutiny, because basically if they want to take me to court, the burden of proof is on them. They're going to have to show that there is no bunker down there. They're going to have to show that the big giant elevator that goes down a mile isn't there. There's no way they can do that. Right. And from what I've been told, or from what I've been hearing, is that they will not do anything unless thousands of people show up at that location and start asking questions and making a scene. So if we all go there and decide to have, I've been wanting to gather up hundreds of psychics and go there and screw with them on a psychic level, and this is what I'm worried about.
I would do.
I would love to be part of that. I mean, it'd be very, very, very interesting. And you're right, because like you said, if they were to respond, then it basically validates what you're saying is true. Because why would they say anything about it if, one way or another, if it wasn't true?
Yeah, there's no way that they want to publicize this.
Right. And like you said, you have a picture. It's the cover of your book. Obviously, what you're saying is true, and you've got what it takes to back it up. We actually have a question in chat right now, and somebody's wanting to know, can anybody get below the Getty?
Absolutely not. Oh, yeah, sure. Anybody that sells their soul and has the right blood,
Right. So to get to up, it might kind of really, send them in a complete whirlwind. They would probably know really what to do just if all these people just showed up there, huh?
Well, I'll give you an example. When the Getty was being built, years ago, but prior to it having been open to the public, there were some tours, that only special elite people were able to go on these tours. And my brother actually was the one that was on this tour, and it's because he was friends with a guy that was actually hired to be the trust fund manager. And if you could imagine, that's $1 billion trust fund that he was managing. That's not a small thing. And he was actually recruited into the Templars, and he became one of them. But So he got to see the elevators, he got to see the armory, the rooms full of machine guns and all the stuff under there that nobody gets to see, and, the big blast doors, and everything else. But at that time, Clinton was president, and even Hillary wanted to go down there and check it out, and she had to wait her turn. So yeah, we got to see it before she did. So, but trust me, though, obviously there's these bunkers they're all over the United States, of course. They're all over they've got them all over the world. There's at least 250 of them in the United States. They're all connected. When the Getty was opened, and when they, and I'm not talking about the museum, but when they basically christened the new facility underground, a couple of things happened. One, J. Paul Getty was awarded a knighthood by the Queen. And you got to wonder, what did he do to deserve that? Nobody even thinks about that. And the other big thing is that Prince Andrew, if you remember Prince Andrew, he came there and visited, and he made 2 stops. One was at Edwards Air Force Base, which is another one of these facilities that has an underground out here in the Mojave. And in the newspaper, they said that he was going there to inspect aircraft. Well, needless to say, in reality, what he did was he went to the base underground at Edwards and then took the train or the shuttle or whatever it is they call it and went to, wow, I got a helicopter going overhead. I'm going to move in the house here. Good. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, they're after me. It's okay anyway. But he went there and took the tube and then went to the facility under the Getty, and I suspect that he represented his mother and he was christening the facility because obviously of all the bunkers that they have built, the one underneath the Getty is probably the most luxurious of all of them, because clearly, they've got the art and everything else, so you can just imagine just how incredibly beautiful that thing is down there.
Wow, yeah. And so, you say there's about 250 underground bunkers across the United States, right?
Yes.
And so for most people, those are going to be, only used for the elite, correct? So if when the shit does hit the fan, they're going to be nice and protected underground. We get so many people who scoff at even the thought that there would be underground bases. But, in the last, I'd say, even 10 years, I've seen multiple shows like on the History Channel and all different channels, which actually are where they're taking cameras down into these bunkers. One was, I forgot, right underneath a really fancy hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one in Virginia, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where, people were there and nobody, right underneath their nose, and nobody knew it was there.
Well, the thing about the one in Virginia is, you see, they're trying to tell us that the purpose of these bases is for continuity of government, which is a complete farce. Obviously they have bases that are dedicated for members of Congress and what have you, but the thing is about these bases is that this is how they get compliance and cooperation from the power elite. When you look at guys like John McCain and Lindsey Graham and these politicians who seem to have these suicidal, warmongering tendencies, you wonder, why in the hell would somebody like this be trying so hard to start World War III and lead to the deaths of hundreds or billions of people? And the reason for that is that they are in a big hurry to move into their gold-plated condos down underground. You know, they're ready to give up the surface. They think, they convince these people that they're gods among men. They dangle this carrot in front of them, and they say, everything's going to go to hell, but don't worry, we've got you covered. You're protected. And this is what they do, and this is one of the ways that they get people to follow their ways, is they convince them that you're special, you're going to be saved, everyone else is going to die, but not you because you're so special. So that's what they do. But clearly, but you see, the thing is that we talk about ultra elite and the people that go to these bunkers and stuff. There are levels to the elite. And so even the people that, if you look on the surface here, like your Bill Gates and your Warren Buffetts and your Soros and these guys, the guys with all the oligarchs, the guys with the billions of dollars, they are peons compared to the ones that live in these bunkers. And even the ones that live in the bunkers have levels of elite above them. So in other words, it's like they have like, for instance, the ultra elite. They send them to special places like islands in the Greek islands. Then the level below that, above that, they send them to these underground bunkers. Well, then the ones that are better than the higher up levels, they send them to bases on the moon. And the guys that are even higher than that, those guys get to go to bases on Mars. So it's crazy. So whenever you see these people, you think that they're ultra elite. There's always somebody higher up.
Right. Yeah, so it's kind of like a hierarchy. And we have been seeing, a lot more of all of this stuff, like right out in sight. Like we see a lot of people in the music industry and in Hollywood who are now, just like you said, they are being, promised the world, stardom, fame, money, everything and anything they could want. And, to a lot of these people, that's all that they're thinking about. And they say, oh, wow, it seems great, we're going to be among the elite. But do they not really understand that, they're still very low, even if they're part of this, they're still very low and are really not really important or necessary to the higher up, right? I mean, they're no.
That's totally true. That's totally true. When you look at people like Beyonce and Jay-Z, with all their Illuminati nonsense, they're still total peons compared to the people above them.
Right, and that's the way I see it too. I mean, there is a hierarchy, and they are making all these deals with these people and bringing them in order, to be able to have some control and power over them and use them just as they use everybody else. So, they're not really any more important. If, they had to get rid of somebody, I doubt that they would say, well, wow, it's Beyonce or Jay-Z, it's going to happen. And again, even though we see, Lady Gaga, like you said, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Rihanna, Miley Cyrus, their videos, their music, everything is just so jam-packed all of a sudden with, Illuminati symbols and references and, the handshakes, the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, all of these different things, but yet people are still, wanting to say, oh, well, it has nothing to do with, anything. They're not in any special group. That, they haven't been given anything. But why would then they start putting all of this stuff in all of their videos? And I mean, it's almost overwhelming because it's always been dribbled there, here, and there. But now it's just like all different genres across the board.
Well, there is a very important common denominator here, and it's something that a lot of people don't really want to focus on or even acknowledge, and that is the whole satanic connection. And, a lot of people out there say, well, that's religion, that's dogma, that's not real, blah, blah, blah. Well, to these people, it's very real. They really are doing human sacrifice, if all you got to do is look at what's going on in the UK right now, and here in the U.S. with the pedophilia, which goes hand in hand with all of this satanic endeavor, and the very fact that they're trying to make this all common and part of our culture shows you how much that they have infiltrated our society. But whether you believe in Satan or not, you have to understand that these people that rule the earth and have been ruling the earth for such a long period of time, they very much believe in it. So something people have to accept.
Right. And, we were talking about underground bases. And, Renee, why don't we talk about the one that, you had found a while back ago? And let's Stephen's opinion on that
one. The one off of Malibu. And I know it's been on the media recently. And, some time back, I do a lot of research and looking for stuff like that. And when I came across this unusual kind of structure that's off of Malibu's coast, and once I started looking at the various parts, and I think somebody in the military talked about a base that was actually underwater off the coast of Malibu, and it got the nickname Malibu Base, and so when I was looking at that and compared it with even my cousin and I were researching that stuff too, and we basically did our own, our own remote view. And when we were looking at this place underneath and the various offices that they had inside of there, I think you're absolutely right that they do have their watchdogs. It's like watchdogs, because we seen a gentleman who was wearing like a lab coat and working on some kind of monitoring system, and he happened to look right over to where we were looking over his shoulder. And
they employ Nazi psychics.
Oh God! Talk about the oh crap moment, and we're like, oh God, did he just see us? And we just kind of came back.
Oh yeah, they saw you. They see you.
Yeah, well, how smart. How smart to do it that way. I mean, of course, it's kind of like that's better than a security system.
When you go under the Getty, the first level that you hit is a level of Nazi psychics, and they're there to try to prevent penetration, or at least to be able to know when somebody does penetrate.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly that is something they do. But I got to tell you something that one of the biggest things that I discovered when I was doing this, when I was first realizing about these undergrounds, it reminded me of a passage from the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, where they talk about what they call the metropolitans, which are these big underground bases that they put under all these major capitals or these big western cities. And remember, this was written 100 years ago. They've been doing this a long time. When I confronted one of the people that was a handler, one of my handlers, he kind of freaked out, but he divulged something that really messed with my head, and that was the fact that they aren't just Jews, they're also Nazis. So you've got this Zionist contingent working side by side with these Nazis. And when that took a whole year for me just to comprehend, because it didn't make any sense. But what I learned was that this is what they do. This is the dual polarity nature of this reality, and they play two sides against each other, and that they do that in just about everything they do. It's all about two sides of the same coin.
Right.
Oh.
But that underground structure you mentioned, we could talk about that for a few minutes, because that has some interesting characteristics that people really need to understand. But anybody can see this. All you got to do is go to Google Maps, and you go just a little bit north of Malibu, California, up to point. I guess it's right where that base is. I can't think of the name of it right now, but there's a military base just a little bit north of Vandenberg, I think it is, one of these places. Point Magoo, I think it is, Point Magoo. It's just right off of Point Magoo. It's about 6 miles off the coast. But the thing is that there's no way that humans built this thing, and there's no way that this is a natural formation. And you can see it clear as day. Anybody can go on Google Maps and see this thing clear as day right off the coast. And it looks like a huge lid or a roof with 4 big pillars supporting it. And if you look at just the dimensions of this thing, first of all, it's 6 miles off the coast. You've got to go down probably 500 feet just to get to the top of the roof. The roof itself is something like 500 feet thick. Now, 500 feet, that's a human diver, a scuba diver, can barely go 120 feet. So that means in order just to get to the underside of the roof of this structure, you've got to go down almost 1,000 feet. That's way beyond anything any human can do with a scuba tank. Now, and then these pillars that support this roof are something like 650 feet tall, and there's a space that's something like 1,200 feet wide in between the 2 main pillars. There's like 4 big pillars that you can see clearly, and there's a 1,200-foot gap between these things. So if you can imagine, a doorway underneath this thing that's 650 feet tall by 1,200 feet wide, that's huge. That's way bigger than anything you need for a submarine. It's probably big enough for a mothership to pass into.
Yeah, and that's the area too where there's a lot of USOs would be in those areas that everybody's been talking about between there and Catalina.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most definitely. Yeah. A lot of people, fishing boats and what have you, see these things pop up. It's just a little bit south of the Channel Islands too. But that's the thing, though. It's just, how is it that all these years? I mean, we've had Google Maps now for so long. How is it that all these years nobody's noticed that before?
Right. That was one of my questions because, again, people are finding some of the strangest things, but I mean, obviously that's been there for a long time. And actually, when Renee had shown it to me, quite a while back ago, it was very interesting. I was saying the same thing. Well, if this is, we can look it up. Why isn't anybody else talking about it? And then all of a sudden, it was kind of like everybody was talking about it everywhere. And again, you start getting, people saying, oh, it's just a natural rock formation, all these different things. And it's like, really? I mean, take a look at it.
Right. Yeah, and chemtrails are water vapor.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, I mean, and you're in California, too.
Oh, yeah, right. And the Twin Towers went down because of jet fuel.
Yeah, oh, yes. Of course. And we don't believe any of this. And Sandy Hook was, all those poor little children, this was all real. I mean, it's one thing after another. And it doesn't surprise me, all of the lies that are out there. And even when the truth is put out there, it's kind of, quickly covered up because there are so many trolls and people putting out disinformation out there, to confuse people. But I kind of see a turn. I see that people are no longer wanting the same answers that the government's been giving them all along, that, hey, none of this exists. It's just, people trying to scare you. What do you think? Do you think that there is a turn that now people are finally starting to wake up and say, yeah, this is BS, there's other answers?
Well, I talk about this quite a bit, and I tell people that the truth is like a fire. It's like a flame. And some of us, our truth burns brighter than others, but the thing is that if you light enough of these flames and you spread it around, eventually it's going to become a bonfire and it's going to consume everything. And basically what that means is that the change and the waking process will be an avalanche eventually. It's going to be exponential. We are going to hit a critical mass, and then there will be nothing that they can do about it.
And do you think that that's why that they're actually preparing, so many things? I mean, we know now that there are FEMA camps. People didn't know anything about them, and again, they were right under everybody's noses. And I think when, like, Jesse Ventura had, first came out and, nobody wanted to believe there were FEMA camps until he started, putting them on video and showing them. And then, of course, soon after, his show was canceled. But there's actually one here in Sacramento. And the thing is that, throughout the United States, not only are these locations now have been stocked, with not only food and supplies, but with personnel. So do you think that, they are preparing, to do something really shitty, or do you think that that could even be in preparation of, when everybody does kind of, say enough is enough, and then they're going to, try to round us up?
Well, all of the above. And all you got to really do is look at what's going on right now on the border here with the illegal aliens flooding into the country, and the UN saying that they're going to come and intervene and treat them as refugees. Obviously, this is all manufactured. We know that they're already rounding up homeless people and moving them into these camps. They're hiring people. It's they're staffing. We've got millions of plastic coffins all over the country. We've got the train cars with the multi-levels with the shackles, ready to go. We've got the Department of Homeland Security buying billions of rounds of ammo. They're not buying billions of rounds of ammo for training purposes. You've got all these government agencies like the USDA arming themselves with machine guns. I mean, for what? What does the USDA need machine guns for?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then, this is 1938 Nazi Germany all over again, and people that don't see that are not paying attention. History does repeat itself, and it is repeating itself. I mean, look at what's going on in the Ukraine. We have our country, the United States, the country that fought against fascism, actively supporting real live Nazis in the Ukraine. They're doing atrocities in Ukraine. I mean, these people, they're not even hiding it. They are real Nazis, and we're supporting this. And how is it that the people in the United States don't see this and are not freaking out? It's crazy.
Yeah, I look at it too, and I mean, it's like the things that you see that are happening. Again, anytime that there is any kind of focus on our government or our president, all of a sudden something major happens to capture our attention and take it away from the real issues. I mean, it just seems to happen over and over again. And, I mean, we're seeing, again, all over the United States. I mean, I've had many, many people send me videos that they've taken. I've taken video myself of, like an hour's worth of military and UN vehicles, being brought in. And it's like, for what? Like, why are we bringing all of this, stuff in, if it's not going to be used on us?
Well, that's right. They really do want to kill billions of people. I mean, my God, it's written in stone. If the Georgia Guidestones, they flat out, right out say that they want to reduce the Earth's population down to 500 million.
Right.
I mean, obviously they want to kill 6.5 billion people. That's just an incredible amount of death. And they're implementing it right now. I mean, obviously the chemtrails are slow death. We've got Fukushima. That is not. I mean, that is there. That is real. That is not going away. It's amazing that the Pacific Ocean could be dying, and yet people are still swimming in the water and they're still eating seafood. It's just, I mean, all the sea life. I mean, half the sea life in the Pacific Ocean is dead. The largest ocean in the world is half of the sea life is dead, and it's like we should be completely freaking out right now. But I'll tell you though, we are moving into transition. We are very close coming to a point to where human thought is going to be able to alter reality, and this is a very big part of one of the things that I talk about, and I very much want to teach people how to use their psychic skills for this very purpose, because there's going to come a time very soon when there will be certain people who are going to affect change for the rest of the world. And that whole can't be killed club thing I was telling you about, I think that has something to do with it. I think that there are cosmic laws that have to do with people that affect the world. In other words, if there is a human alive who is destined to do something that will touch every single other human on the planet, that person cannot be touched, and that is because that is the nature of time, and that's just the way it is. Time is based on probability, and if the probability is 90% or greater that something is supposed to happen, you can't change that. There's nothing that you can do. A normal human can. It's like trying to kill Hitler. Hitler was destined to do a certain thing, and there was nobody that was going to be able to stop it until he was done doing whatever it was he was supposed to do. And that was why all those assassination attempts failed.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I was seeing on TV, and I wish I could remember the name of the movie right now, but it's one that's getting ready to come out where she's, I can't even think of the name of the actress, but she was taken into a lab, and they inject her with like jellyfish DNA or a bunch of weird stuff, and it like starts making her be able to use all of her. You know what I'm talking about?
Lucy.
Yes. Now, again, we're seeing movies, and I said this way back, like when Star Trek was around, and I always bring this up, but there was so much that I saw on Star Trek that is like, you'd have to be one, really, really big person on making, things good for a movie when all of this stuff actually we already had, and it's now come out. Just about anything that you've seen on many of the things that you've seen on Star Trek are now present. Now, do you think that there's any credibility in this movie that's coming out that is actually kind of reality?
Well, that's what the Illuminati does. It's almost like they are required to tell us in advance everything they do. For instance, like 9/11 is a perfect example. If you go back and look at various different television programs and movie ads and record covers and even The Simpsons, there's been so many little clues leading up to that event where they pretty much flat out warned us about what would be coming, and that's the way it is. And I think it's like they feel that as long as they tell us what they're going to do, they're righteous, and that's the way they do these things. So yeah, clearly, and then the other reason why they do that is it's to control the information. Okay, so if, like, for instance, when we come out in and talk about these things, I'll give you a good example. One of the last Star Trek movies, okay, with the new crew, the new actors, and all that, it was filmed at the Getty, and not only was it filmed at the Getty, but the movie started out with somebody going down there and essentially blowing up their underground base. I mean, that, how in your face is that?
Right. And again, people, though, they see this as a movie and they're like, oh, why do you guys take it so literally? It's all made up. It's just a movie.
Right. But you see, but they try to control the information, and that way they try to blunt people like me. They go, oh, underground base, the Getty, oh, you were watching Star Trek. Like, that must be where you got that. So yeah, this is how they try to own the information and control the truth. But that's how Satan does it. Satan's all about half-truths.
Right.
They tell you something that's true, and then they tell you some crap, and you're going to believe the crap because you're accepting what is true.
Oh, you know what? That is so good. I mean, not just in this, but just in general, because in the world you see that there is kind of just so much hatred and pitting people against each other, and again, it is usually based off of a bunch of either half-truths or BS, all mixed up so that it sounds good and people will believe it, and it will cause a bunch of chaos and a bunch of fighting and bickering. And, I mean, kind of when you think about it, it's more like a psychological warfare that they're, using. But it's very, it is, I guess, obviously works very well. So,
You know, another movie, though, I should point out really quick, if you don't mind, and that is the cartoon, Disney cartoon or Pixar, whatever it is, Monsters Incorporated. Okay, in Monsters Incorporated, they harvested fear as energy. Well, this is exactly what they do. There are entities, when you learn about the aliens and you realize the different political orientations of the various extraterrestrials that we're dealing with, you'll see that the bad guys, if you want to use that term, the service-to-self entities, they require a psychic or a spiritual nutrition, which is essentially negative human emotional psychic energy, and they actually call it loosh. That's what it's called. And they harvest this loosh, and it's human loosh is a valuable commodity, and believe me, they harvest this stuff like you harvest milk from cows, and they sell it all over the universe. It's very valuable stuff, and the free lunch is going to be over, and this is why they're working so feverishly right now to subvert as many people as they can before we transition, because once we transition, the whole process starts over again, and we'll be on the same level they are. But another thing that I should mention, when you learn about all this alien stuff and you learn about the mechanics and all that, you learn that there's multiple levels of density. A lot of people talk about dimensions and going up to the 3D and the 5D and the 4D and all that. Well, it's not really dimensions. What it is levels of density. And these levels of density are basically determined by the ratio of physical to spiritual. We're on the third level of density right now, which means that we're mostly physical, but we do have a strong spiritual component. When you go up to the next level, you're almost 50-50 spiritual physical, and this is why these entities on these higher levels require this psychic nutrition, because they are 50% spiritual beings, and they require spiritual nutrition as well as physical nutrition.
Very interesting. And, I have noticed, too, that, people like myself who grew up, psychic, and felt, kind of very out of, place. It was something that you didn't talk about, all these different things. But, again, I started noticing, because I was, brought up Catholic, and I have noticed after now, many, many years of talking to, thousands of, people with abilities, that they're no longer so much religious as they are spiritual.
Exactly. Forget about religion. Yeah.
Right. And once they do that, that's kind of like when they start to ascend. That's like when they start to understand this and start to get it. And it makes a lot more sense. And I think that with we have to remember that whether it's religion or whatever, things were retranslated, things were taken out, things were put in, man, then wrote it, and think, we don't even want to go into the Pope, but all the different things in the Vatican, all of these different things. So we've got all this, information, and from birth we have been basically brainwashed and trained what to believe in, how to think, and what we, how we believe the world is, and how we were created, and everything. And we start to see that's all we know. So, of course, when it's anything different from what we've been taught, it seems like people seem to push it away, that it could not be possibly true. And, of course, religion does really tie people, down. I mean, believe me, I'm very, I still, believe in a lot of things, just not everything. So I don't claim any religion. I'm not going to be affiliated with any specific religion. But I'll tell you, it's almost liberating, to get to that point. If
I could just say this, when I try to train people to become psychic and to start down this path, there's so many rules, but one of the biggest rules or steps that you need to take is the developing an open mind. Okay, that and unconditional love is very important. But when you realize, you see, because the thing is and this is what happened to me when I had this revelation about the Nazis and the Zionists working side by side. I thought I had everything figured out, and then when I heard that, I had to go back, throw everything away, and start over. and this is what everybody has to do. And our school system trains people to basically put their ego in front of their education. So they think that, everybody wants proof. And that's one of the things that really pisses me off when I'm out there dealing with people on the internet is they say, oh, prove it. It's like, I'm not here to prove anything. You do your own homework.
Right.
As soon as you think that you know it all, you've stopped learning.
I am. Preach it. I'm telling you, that is, we've said it so many times, so many times here, and it's so very true. I think that is, that's so amazing to hear. Well, I mean, I know how you are, but I think that's so amazing, to hear, because that is, everybody is so, skeptical, prove everything, and it's like, why? Why?
Like, do your own homework.
You prove me wrong, right? Yeah, you prove it wrong. I mean, you show me where it's not the case, because why do we have to go out and show everybody? I mean, get out there and do some checking yourself. It always, it's the same thing. As somebody's posting in our chat, like even about social media, how that is, causing a lot of strain, even within people. And it truly is. I mean, we've got people who believe anything that they see on the internet. Then we've, got the others that they don't, question anything, and we got people that, it starts a lot of friction. I've seen people, or send a private message or a text, say, and they say something, right? And the person that receives it or reads it, may be in a foul mood or something, and all of a sudden what is typed means something completely different than what the sender meant. And I have seen it create, like horrible online fights. I've seen it ruin friendships from, just years ago, years and years. It's crazy how we are affected so much by everything around us, not only mainstream media, but now even the internet.
You bring up a really important point, and this is something that it seems like a day does not go by that I have to remind people of this, and that is, once you start to wake up and once you get onto the path of shedding your ignorance, a couple things. One, you can't go back. You can't go back to sleep. That just is impossible to do. Once you've woken up, you cannot go back to being ignorant. And the other thing is that you're going to lose friends, you're going to lose family members, and that's just the way it is. And if you get upset about that, it's just something that you got to get used to, because you can't. There's no time left to be banging your head against the wall. There's a lot of people out there that will not wake up and that will hold on to the lies, like their life depends on it. And you can't do anything about it. And now, obviously, my family is away from me, but I've run into this with my brother. I've run into this with my sister. I mean, my sister thinks I'm an idiot because I believe in chemtrails. My God, there's so much proof that they're dumping all this poison on us, and yet there are people that still cling to these lies. Same thing with 9/11. Take your pick. Sandy Hook. I mean, another example. Just any one of these, take any one of these events, and it doesn't matter how much logic or truth that you put in front of somebody, they're going to fight you tooth and nail because they don't want to give up their ignorance. They like their lives the way it is, and that's unfortunate because in order to wake up, you have to realize that this existence that we're living in is not where it's at. We're moving on to something completely different, much more spiritual in nature, and your possessions and your job and your human interactions that you're enjoying now are going to be completely irrelevant.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And to go along with further about, how we talk about religion, and, this is all set up to basically to cause conflict and divide and conquer, messing with people's own spirituality so they don't really quite, awake. They just want to follow this person, follow that preacher, follow Islam. And you look at the world right now, who's fighting now? But if you look at someone who is spiritual, we're not involved in this. We're all about connecting, love with, with humanity, with animals, with the planet Earth, and of course, even with the beings and with God Himself.
Well, I want to address that. There was one thing, all right, and it has to do with balance. Because and this was something that troubled me when I was developing this information, and that is that you need to have a balanced yin and yang, all right, and that means the male and the female and everything else that goes with it, and this, when I first started learning about these things, I was a very, very yang. I was a male caricature. I was about as male as you could get, and when I learned about this, I thought, oh, my God, I'm doomed. There's no way I'm going to be able to develop my feminine tendencies because that is just so far from what I am. But I realized something, and this is, of course, in the book, but I'm a twin. I'm an identical twin. And a lot of cultures out there believe that twins, especially identical twins, share a soul. And for that reason, I know there's a lot of cultures, if you have a twin, they basically toss it into the river because of this. They do that in the jungles of the Amazon. They even do that in Asia and in Laos. I've heard that they do that in Laos too. And what I realized, because of my experience with my brother, is that as I was going into this, becoming this male caricature, he was going in the opposite direction. He was, as much as I was becoming this macho thing, he was going feminine. And I thought, wow, and I realized we're two sides of the same coin. And as I was going yang, he was going yin. And since I have developed more spirituality, my hair is longer, I'm more receptive to feminine thinking, he's gone back in the other direction. Okay? So now he was the inspiration for the movie Trans-America, if you know anything about the movie Trans-America. So he was a poster boy for the whole transgender movement, basically. But as I was developing spiritually, he went back to being male. You hear the ice cream truck in the background?
Yeah. Now you're making me hungry.
Anyway, but the thing is what I realized is that I have a role. I'm a warrior, okay? I'm a spiritual warrior, and I realized that I do have this, the reason why I'm able to have this psychic skills and to be able to develop my power without having what people would consider a necessary balance was because of this situation with my brother. In other words, it's almost like I've been given a special biological dispensation that allows me to have these male warrior tendencies and at the same time be a psychic warrior, which you couldn't do without developing this thing. And and that's why you see in the psychic community, you see so many people who are gifted psychically. They tend to be either homosexual or something of this nature. Because they have the really balanced male and female tendencies. So, definitely something to consider.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. That's very interesting because it does. What you're saying does make a lot of sense. Now, in Shadowkin, there's been chattering. One of the things was, the missing Malaysian Airlines. Mm-hmm. And so people wanting to know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, okay, I'm happy to share that with you, although, I tend to shoot those down because it's kind of a non-issue. But first of all, there is no such thing as a missing airliner. The government, and even Boeing, the companies that make these planes, they know where every single plane is at every single time. And, from the time the motors turn on to the time the motors turn off, they know exactly where it's at. Every single engine on those jets has GPS and has a satellite uplink back Boeing factory. So they know exactly where that jet is. And I personally believe that it was diverted to Diego Garcia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I thought too. Because again, not only, and we didn't even have to even rely on our, the radar, because there are satellites that are going 24 hours a day that can see up our nostrils if it wanted to.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell me that, just because they say, a plane went off the radar for, so many hours, you're going to tell me that there is no way of knowing where that plane went? Give me a break. But,
it's ridiculous. And that's the other thing, is that we already know since 9/11 and prior to that every single modern jetliner is able to be flown by wire, by remote control. So, clearly the plane could have been diverted and landed in Diego Garcia, and they didn't even need pilots for that.
Right. Yeah, right. And, and the thing is, of course, what got me really, really kind of thinking about this, too, was the fact that, it is very rare when you have, really, black ops secret projects and things like that. Most people don't know, but nobody is given all the information. Each person that goes there works on a very specific task, and that's it. And it's not a complete, anything to complete anything, because they don't want anybody to have all of the information. But rarely do these people travel in groups, number one, and to have all of them happen to be on the same commercial flight is
right. You're talking about the freestyle executives. You're right.
Yeah. When do you ever see, everybody working on something like that all on one plane? Because that, would be, even just as a layperson, that would be really, really stupid, because if somebody decided to hijack a plane and take them, they would have everybody they would need to figure out what we're doing.
Well, right, and then there's the fact that 6 of the people on board the plane were patent holders, and now that they've disappeared, the only patent holder left is Evelyn de Rothschild. That's kind of a red flag right there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, what about, let's get to, another hot place of topic is Bohemian Grove. Now, for people who live in California, especially Northern California, from where I, live at, Bohemian Grove is definitely, people know about it. And something really interesting had happened, I think it was 2 years ago, but they were having, the whole meeting up there at Bohemian Grove, and there was a man who had been kind of on the forefront of exposing Bohemian Grove, as well as Thomas Aquino and everybody. He was 75 years old. He has his radio show, Whole Nine Yards, and I was nice enough to meet him, and he had invited me to go to Bohemian Grove the year before last because they were taking, I think like over 100 people were going there to protest. And he wanted to, have a psychic with him to be able to go and see what I could pick up on. And what was so interesting is the day that I was supposed to go, I had this vision of him being attacked and literally him being arrested, like us getting hurt, things like that. And I actually even called him, and I couldn't get a hold of him. And I was supposed to be going. My car actually broke down on the way to San Francisco right before I went over the bridge to go there. And so I said, I don't know I'm not going to be able to make it. And literally, I think it was like, I didn't hear from the guy all day. And I was like, wow, what's going on? And literally that afternoon, while he was waiting for me, they were protesting, and he was basically attacked and jailed. And, it's interesting because, we hear so much about Bohemian Grove and what goes on there and the decisions that are made there. But again, so many people are like, no, it's just, a bunch of guys getting together to go camping and
big social club, right.
Right.
Where they worship Moloch and do human sacrifice and do all sorts of homosexual activity. Yeah, just a normal guy night with the guys.
Yeah, isn't it amazing that, people will, so overlook, again, things like this that are just so out there. There have been pictures that have surfaced of them doing, sacrifices. There has been people who have infiltrated and taken video and then later released it and things like that. People who snuck in. it amazes me. But we do know, or for, those that do know about Bohemian Grove, some of our, the biggest moves that are made by our government and the elite are decided there at these meetings, right?
Well, that's true. My God, so much of that has been recorded. I remember there was Robert Oppenheimer they discussed when they were going to drop the nuclear bomb, and all the presidents are there, and world leaders and governors and what have you. They all go there, mostly men, of course. But the thing about Bohemian Grove that's important to remember is that again, this is satanic. What they're doing there is satanic. This whole business with the big owl statue in Moloch, it's not just fun and games. These are very ancient entities that have their roots in Babylonian Sumerian culture, and there's nothing innocent about this. This whole business with the everything they do there is satanic in nature. And again, you can act like that you think that's not real, but to them, it's very real.
Mhm. Mhm. And yeah, and like you said, some major things are discussed and planned and put into motion. There that people have just no clue. It's just crazy. Now, let's go back to the underground. Bunkers. There is a lot of, again, controversy on, in these bunkers, is our government working with other alien entities, in these locations? Of course, I guess most people that, if they don't believe in this stuff, of course, they're not going to believe that, of all things. Even if they could swallow the pill that, there's underground bunkers, they absolutely cannot believe that they're, the government could be working with any kind of, alien race, because they don't believe that they exist. But, with your background and your knowledge, do you know how many actual races that we are working with within the government in these locations?
Well, okay, first of all, there's probably something like 8,000 species of alien out there. On Earth, there are probably 4, or maybe a little bit more than 4, but 4 primary groups that they are working here: the tall whites, the tall grays, the little grays, and some others, Anunnaki types. But the thing is that you got to understand that out of all of these entities scattered across the universe, they can all be divided right down the middle into 2 sides and 2 camps, and that is the service to self and the service to others. And this is very, very important to understand because, again, and I don't want to get religious, but this goes back to that whole Lucifer being cast out business. The service to self entities, you work up to these different alien species, and again, there's multiple different levels of density, but ultimately you get to the top of the pyramid, and you're dealing with Lucifer. That's just the way it is. So the entities that we see here on Earth are primarily of the service to self flavor. And the ones that, ones like Pleiadians and whatnot that we have very, very little contact with, they are the service to others, and they kind of work along the Star Trek premises where they don't interfere, okay? They're non-intervention. And that's, if you want to understand it, look at the service to self entities are kind of like the conquistadors in the New World. They thought they were righteous. They thought they were bringing God to the savages, so in their own minds they thought they were doing the right thing. But the reality is that the methods they were using were less than loving, and that's the nature of the service to self entities. But another thing that is very important is that when you do start to go down this path and you start to understand the nature of reality, you have to get rid of concepts like good and evil, okay? Because it doesn't work. We don't look at the bad guys and say these guys are evil and the good guys are the righteous ones. It doesn't really work that way. It's more of shades of gray, if you will, and that is the yin and yang. If you look at the yin and yang symbol, you have to think about it rotating, and then you realize that it's constantly changing ratios of black and white, and that is a perfect representation of this third density level that we inhabit right now. But when we graduate to the next level, the service or the fourth density, all of that is cast aside, and this is why they are struggling so hard to win the hearts and minds of the humans. I mean, it's almost like a battle between Satan and God over souls, if you will, if you want to put it into a religious context, and that's because that's really what it is. We're approaching a transition where humans have to decide which side they want to be on. And when you get down to it, the most important thing in the world that we could possibly do is convince people to become more service to others than service to self. Even if you are only 51% service to others, you will be on the right side. And this is very important, and that's why you see our culture today is so much influenced by this whole me, consume. It's all about me. That's that whole service to self thing. So if you want to, I mean, all you got to do is you look at people like Gandhi, you look at Jesus Christ, you look at Buddha. They all went through the same thing, and they realized that the only way to get off this merry-go-round that we call life is to do this, is to embrace the service to others lifestyle, and that is how you graduate. That's how you get off this. So, and it's coming soon. People need to embrace this concept.
Yeah.
People think, well, gee, okay, this is really key here. People think, well, gee, you know, if I'm constantly giving of myself, how am I going to get anything? Well, you got to understand that in a service to others society, which is what we hopefully will run into or graduate to, wealth will not be measured by what you own. Wealth will be measured by how much you give. And
right.
People will be so busy giving to each other that you will want for nothing because
right.
you will have everything you need because everybody will be bending over backwards to give you what you need.
Right.
And that's the future.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because, you know, especially the last 12 years since my near-death experience, my whole life has been dedicated to helping other people, not for money, not for, you know, reputation or ego or anything like that, because that's what I was supposed to be doing. And people will say, oh, you know, they give me all this credit. And, you know, I would say, you know, people think that it's so foreign to them to see people that will think of people, you know, so you know, I'm not a selfish person, you know, whatsoever. Anybody who needs my help, you know, I'm ready to do. I help the homeless, whatever I can do. And it's sad to see that this is so foreign to people, that they think that, you know, oh, wow, like I stand out like a bright shining star because I do this. But, you know, like everybody can do this. I try to, like, put out daily on my posts, you know, telling people, you know, that, I mean, there's so many things that you can do, you know, to give back. They don't cost a dime. It doesn't cost a thing. But people are it's so about them, what they want, you know, what they need, that it's a foreign concept to them. It's very strange to me. And
what we're doing now is service. Just sharing information is some of the most noble service that you can provide.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to increase your energy.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, because it's not just, you know, lip service, but, you know, we have to live by the example, you know, whether we're in the crowd or in, you know, in private. It's just a matter of how we conduct ourselves as, you know, being, you know, that light bearer and helping others and you know, of helping others. So it's not to put our name on a plaque or you know, that kind of recognition. It's just because it's from the heart of what we do. And, you know, Christina is a great example of that.
Well, you know, I think that if each and every one of us did something for somebody every single day, like, we would not see the problems that we have nowadays. We wouldn't see that, you know. I mean, here it's all about, you know, like, save yourself, you know, or think about yourself or do for yourself, you know. It's like, why, help somebody with something to eat when, you know, you'd rather take that money and go buy yourself an Xbox or something. You know, it just, it blows my mind sometimes, you know, how well we've been programmed to be so dysfunctional. And
but you don't have to give away possessions, and you don't have to give people money to serve. You know, you can serve just by talking to people and sharing the truth with them. That's the most noble thing we can do while we're alive.
You know, and people have some amazing, amazing stories. I mean, Renee has come out with me. I'm a very big person as far as, like, with the homeless. You know, people are so standoffish of the homeless, and, you know, they're looked at so horribly, and I'm very drawn to them. And their stories are just so touching. And you know that these people have nothing, and they are some of the kindest, sweetest, loving people I've ever met.
Yeah.
We found out. You remember that guy that we were talking to, Renee? He was telling us, you know, he has a family. His family actually has money. You know, he has a 5-bedroom house out here in Sacramento and all of that. And he met this man who, it was in the neighborhood, who was homeless. And he's an older man. I mean, he's just pretty old. And this guy got so attached to this man that he tried to convince him to come and live in his home and all this, and the man wouldn't agree. And so this other man basically went out and is living on the street with this guy so that he has somebody and he has some protection and he has companionship. And they were telling us these stories, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And just the fact that we actually even stopped and gave 2 cents about them, you know, it just made them melt. They were just like, oh my gosh, like we were the best people in the world, and telling us the stories of how people will just walk past them or spit on them.
And it's interesting too, because when we went, you know, I know a lot of people, you know, do stuff to give stuff to the homeless, and you know, and then move on. But when we were there, we you know, we brought them some food and some things for them, and then we stayed there for, over an hour?
Yeah,
talking with them. You know, so it was beautiful, and hearing their stories, and, you know, and that hug showing their appreciation meant a lot. That was a big payoff right there.
Yeah, but you know what was also interesting to me is that, you know, these same homeless people that have really nobody are usually the first ones that disappear and that are you know, become missing, and nobody's looking for them. So why would, you know, they're like the perfect target for you know, whatever they're being used for, whether it be, you know, any kind of experiments or whatever. And even speaking of that, we actually, from one of our network was actually asking a question about if anybody, or we'll put this with you, Stephen, is that did anybody think that, or do you think that our military does stuff to make super soldiers?
Okay. Yeah, well, obviously I went to not the last super soldier convention, but the one before that. And yeah, very much so. There's different types of super soldiers, of course.
Right.
That means a lot of different things. There are the so-called psychic warriors. There are the avatars. There's also the people that do this is kind of like remote viewing, where it's almost like astral projection, only a little more physical. The things they can do, I mean, they can actually go inside another person's body and control that body. It's pretty crazy. And when you're working on that realm, you're moving into a realm that there is no time, there is no limitations. You can go forward and backwards in time. We do have the Men in Black is a good example. We have phase shifters, guys that can basically go back and forth in time and go to different places. You know, they can kind of beam in and beam out, sort of a thing. That is real. There are also people that are being modified with alien DNA and things like that. Those are considered super soldiers. it really gets crazy. There's all sorts of human genetic experiments going on with hybrids and oh my gosh, what do they call them? There's a name for it. Gosh, I can't remember right now, but yeah, there's all sorts of that going on. And then of course there's also, well, I mean, I was involved more in physical stuff and developing technology, but so there's all kinds of factors. But I tell these guys, I'll tell you one thing about these so-called super soldiers. A lot of them have Stockholm syndrome, really bad. Mm-hmm. They carry with them a victim mentality, and yet at the same time they embrace it and celebrate it like it's a good thing. And the way I see it, I mean, I try to train people to develop their psychic skills. And one of the benefits of having a service to others lifestyle is that you develop, your energy field is different than people who are service to other lifestyle as opposed to service to self. A person who is service to others is a gravity giver, and a person who is service to self is a gravity taker. And basically what this means is that when you become a gravity giver, you have a psychic armor or a field around you that essentially makes you impervious to these negative influences and these hostile energies. So when I see these people who are on the so-called being manipulated super soldier types, I say, well, do you want me to help you? The first thing you've got to do is you have to adopt a service to others lifestyle. And they just don't get it. So, there's not a lot you can do for a lot of these guys. Right, absolutely. And we do see, too, that, that we are seeing a turn in technology as well. We were talking about movies before, and here's another one. So so many people have seen, like RoboCop and Terminator. And if you, stay on top of this stuff in the research and stuff, DARPA is coming out with replicas of these exact things. And I was watching the new RoboCop movie recently, and I was just like, wow, it just rang so true when they were trying to convince everybody that, don't be, afraid, this is a good thing, and that way we're not killing humans. And right. It's like, oh, really? Once again, I think it's like conditioning us, by showing us this stuff to see what it would be like, and then, we see this like kind of like them turning on us, and then we've got the scare factor again. Because they always think that, people, every time I talk to them about UFOs, alien, technology, things like that, people always say, yeah, well, when, the UFO lands on the White House lawn, I'll believe it when I see it for myself. Yeah, oh, proof, I want proof. Yeah, and then when it lands on the White House lawn, they'll argue and say that it's not real, it's Photoshop, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it does, people, I hear, this really pisses me off I deal a lot with the UFO community, obviously, on Revolution Radio, but they're all about disclosure. Stephen Greer, perfect example. Disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. I mean, give me a break. How much more disclosure do you need? Right. We're in disclosure. Like we're amongst it. It is not going to be what people think. I mean, it's not going to. And even if, say, there would be all these UFOs that showed up. To be absolutely honest, now with back engineering all of these different crafts. I mean, that could be the biggest farce and lie that the government, pulls on us. I mean, I've never seen so many, movies now come out recently, that have to do with, the aliens coming to attack us. And, all of a sudden there's millions of ships that show up and they're all coming to get us. And people actually are scared of Sorry, guys. I just had to go to a landline because my second cell phone died. No problem. So it gets to the point where people are kind of conditioned. So if it happens, like people will start to panic. And I think that no matter what the government chooses in order to really shake up
shake us up, whether it's, a made-up terrorist attack, which, I'm very concerned about more nuclear weapons or mass viruses being released to the public to, kill people. But whatever it may be, we've been, so conditioned to fear everything that I can see people, even though all this information has been put out about FEMA, all the FEMA camps and everything, I could see people running to these places to get help.
Yeah. Mhm. Well, yeah, fear is a powerful tool, that's for sure.
Yeah, because it will kind of take people by surprise, and, it's kind of that, impact of, something that hits you really fast and it scares you, and you just kind of like go into panic mode. You don't know what to do. And, again, like you said, disclosure, we are in the midst of this. Like, if people can't open their eyes and see what's going on and can be this naive to think that we could be the only species in all of the universe right there, it tells you a lot about people. But, it always makes me wonder that, it's like I can just see if something was to happen like that, like everybody be like, oh, shit, it actually is real, and then they'll all go running to the FEMA camp for help.
We'll see.
I know I won't be there. We know you won't be there, but I know that there will be a whole lot of people that run that way.
Well, what do they have? The red list, the blue list, and the green or the yellow list?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I figure I'm probably on the red list, so.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt if I was either. That's.
I don't know. I really don't know. But there's one thing that, you're talking about the robots and and all that nonsense. One thing you got to consider is that as one of the most powerful tools of a psychic is the ability to influence others. The power of the energy gives your words a lot of power. And that means is that as you get stronger with your truth and your energy, you can influence these people, and they know that all these armies and these guys that they, DHS employees, whatever, that they try to raise up to use against us, they're still human, and as humans, they are susceptible to the light of truth. And this is why they're working so hard to come up with these robots and what have you that will not be able to be influenced by this energy. But yeah, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter what they do. We're going to win. They're going to fail, and there's really nothing they can do about it. The truth will never lose. So there really is nothing to fear. I mean, it may look really bad. There may be a lot of suffering, and sure, that's certainly something that's in our future. But ultimately, we win.
Right.
That's just the way it is.
We will move on, and we will continue on. I mean, if you look back, major catastrophes and different things have happened throughout, our whole lifetime. Things have happened throughout, from the beginning of time. So, it's something that I agree with you that, there will be loss. There will be people who, that don't make it through this, but whoever, is remaining will pick up the pieces and will, move forward and advance as we always have. So it is. But I think, I had somebody the other day that was talking to me, and they always say, I'm just so sad. I don't care about, me. I just fear for, our children and things like that.
Right. Yeah, that's an important point. I want to bring this up really, really quick. And that is this, you get this a lot from the mothers. Obviously, they care about their children. That's the first thing they think about is I don't mind suffering, but I don't want to see my children suffer. You have to understand, and this is part of the growth process, and once you learn the concept of unconditional love, and once you learn that we are all really the same person taking turns, living in these different bodies, you realize everybody is your child. They are not your children. They are you. So, and we all chose this in advance. None of us, nothing happens by accident. So you got to, and this was certainly one of the hard things that I had to learn is you've got to let your children go. You just, right. Because ultimately those Palestinian children, those are your children. Those children in Israel, those are your children. The children in Africa, those are your children. They're all your children. You have to care about everybody just as if they were your own child.
Absolutely.
Very difficult.
Exactly. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that's a very difficult thing for mothers especially to comprehend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually explained it very, very similarly today to a few people because that's what, I was getting as well. They just kept saying, I don't care about me. I just, worry about my children or my grandchildren and, what they'll have to go through. And it is, but again, we're here for a reason, for lessons that need to be learned. And if we don't learn them, we'll be right back and doing it over and over again until, we do. And, again, it's really ascending and having a better understanding of what is really going on. And what people don't understand is nothing is as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
The things that we've been taught, the things that we have been told, the things that we have been shown, have all been conditioned for, the most grand lie, and I mean, what a great way to keep people under wraps by their fears, because, and especially people's fear of death.
Yeah.
It just amazes me. I mean, I was one of them because, of course, I grew up Catholic, and it was like the one thing that you fear was like, it was dying because you didn't, at that time you were going to be judged if you were going to go to heaven or hell. And, God forbid you do something bad, and not be able to confess before you kick the bucket, then, you're in bad
Well,
way.
if, back to that, that's kind of a religious thing and all that, but ultimately, if, all religious teaching and dogma aside, the only thing that matters in this universe is how much you serve others.
Right.
That's the only thing that matters. So as long as you're a little more than half service to others, you're okay.
Yeah, and though I have to say, I do in my circles, and they're growing, and it's amazing the networking that we can do, and the people that we can connect with that are like-minded like us. And, even when I thought like I was very alone with the whole being a psychic thing, and then now I know that, God, there's, millions of psychics out there, that went through the similar things like I did. So I think that it's good that there are so many that are out there that we can, like you and I, Renee, that we're out there and we're putting this information out, and there are many other people like us that are, spreading these truths and trying to get this information out. And it does seem to, it's now starting to kind of travel like wildfire. And I think that people are seeing for their own eyes so many lies and misrepresentations and, proof that things aren't the way that we were told. And, so it starts making this, once you start questioning one thing, it's almost like a domino effect. You start questioning everything.
Well, that's the waking up process. Something has to hit you to shatter your belief system, and then once that happens, then you basically throw everything away and start from scratch, and that's what waking up is. Right.
Somebody was saying in the chat room, it's amazing the government is not listening to us tonight, and everybody's
they're listening.
They're listening. Believe me, they're listening.
Yeah, they're listening.
Oh, that's so funny.
And I hope they're hearing what they're listening to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you see, that's why they got to come up with these robots, because they know the power of truth, and they know that even their best agents, when they get exposed to truth, they're going to start having second thoughts.
Right. And again, especially when a person has a personal experience, and many now are having personal experiences that they've never had ever, whether it be that they are starting to recognize and realize that, they have some abilities that are now activating. Because, I've always told everybody, like, everybody has psychic abilities. It's not like, like a me or you, like, we're somebody special. We all have them.
Exactly, yeah.
It's so important that we understand, how to activate these. Because the thing is now we're going through all these shifts and everything, and these things are kind of, activating, and people who have kind of like had them lay dormant for so long are like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Now I'm one of those crazy people that I hear talking on the radio, and they need, to understand all this stuff. So I think that, of course, what we're doing is very, very important, because I have people all the time that, are coming to me and saying, what the hell is going on with me? I never, believed in any of this stuff or anything, and now all of a sudden I'm having my own experiences.
Or how about when the shift took place? After, I don't know, like 2012, it's like your eating changes, your sleeping changes, your wants and everything changes, and people think, oh, 2012 came and went and nothing happened. It's like you weren't paying attention, and a lot of stuff happened.
Absolutely.
I mean, the next morning of December, whatever it was, 2012, I'm like, wow, I could tell immediately that things were happening. And, one of the biggest things that you noticed is the polarization. You notice that people are separating, and that's not a good thing, of course, but all of a sudden members of your family don't want to talk to you, people who are your lovers, finally you find out, gee, I'm not compatible with this person anymore, things like that. That's part of the process.
Yeah, I agree. And many people, as you said, are have been experiencing it for a while, and and then they have these such profound personal experiences. I mean, I've got people who that have been dealing with, talking about how there are they're creating doubles of people, and I mean, there's just so much stuff that's going on. And again, when somebody has a personal experience, it really, when their reality is now like shattered, because it's not what they thought. Like now they become one of those other people, where in reality, no, you're not one of the other people. Actually, you're waking up to who you really are and what you're really, what this is really all about, But again, we have been, brainwashed for so long, generation after generation after generation. Because even if we look, back in school, like we're always taught the same things in school, over and over. We're just taught it. And so we pass these same things down to our children and, all these things. So, of course, they believe, how could my parents, the teachers, the government, how could everybody be lying to me? Mm-hmm. And, it's not even that they're meaning to. They're just sharing the exact same BS that, they were told. And, it kind of gets to the point that then something happens that, completely shakes their whole reality up, and then it's kind of like, okay, now eyes are wide open, and now they're kind of, I think, at a point feel vulnerable to want to know what's going on, but, once they understand it and they don't fight it so much, and negativity and, giving so much fear and, the energy of fear, giving that away, I mean, people don't understand that how powerful our energy is, and especially like with the manipulation, the fear that we have of so many things. That's a powerful emotion.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's loosh. That's a negative human psychic emotion. That is energy. That's negative energy, and that is food for these entities.
Right. Now, what do you think as far as in the paranormal field? Because again, once we started seeing all of the pretty much everything in the paranormal, because, now, of course, it's very separated. Paranormal means, spirits and ghosts, and, UFOs is another genre. We're from a time when anything that was, abnormal to anybody else, not normal to anyone else, was paranormal. But
well,
go ahead.
If I could just say, I was talking about densities earlier, and the spirit realm that we're dealing with in the paranormal is actually something like what you would call the fifth level of density. It's a level of density just above the aliens. Remember I said the aliens are 50% physical and 50% spiritual. Well, the level above that is even less physical and even more spiritual, and that is the so-called spirit realm. And that is also a lot of people, what people would consider that heaven. People think when they go to heaven, they think they've gone all the way up. Well, no, that's not true. You've gone up pretty far, but that is also the level that we go to where we choose our lives that we're on now, and we choose when we reincarnate. We don't go from the 4th level down. We go from the 5th level to the 3rd level. That's how it works. So, and yes, obviously there's levels above that, above the spirit realm that we would, the ghosts and these spirits dwell in. There's another level which would be which would be like where the angels are. That's even more spiritual and even less physical. And then above that, there's another level which is where the ascended masters are. This would be your Christ, Buddha, Moses, et cetera, all those great spiritual leaders have graduated to the level of ascended masters, and then obviously above the ascended masters is the apex or source or creator or God.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what would be 100% spiritual, and there could be little divisions or little subdivisions between here and there. People think that there's levels above the creator. You see, it's all about individuality, and when you go past these really high levels, like the levels of the ascended masters, you're very, very spiritual, but you're still maintaining a certain level of individuality. And above that, when you go to return to source, individuality kind of merges. So there are levels above, below the top, and above spiritual or ascended masters where individual energies begin to merge. And then obviously the ultimate merging of the spiritual energy is source. And another thing that people need to understand and I get into this conversation a lot with Christians and people who are trying to understand the nature of God, is that all creation is God. All creation is source. Source, in other words, God. People think that God created humankind and physical reality. That's not really the case, because physical reality is God. It is source. It's like God's clothing. It's all part of God. It's an extension of God. So in other words, people think, they say, Son of God and all of this stuff. Well, we're all the stuff of source, and it's just like the Big Bang. We will all return to source. Even Satan will return to source eventually, and the process will repeat. That's the nature of the Big Bang. The energy goes out, the energy comes in, the energy goes out, the energy comes in. It's like a heartbeat. It's like a heartbeat that takes billions and billions of years between cycles, but that's what reality is. That's the nature of reality.
Very, very, very true. Very, very true. Renee, do you have any questions for Stephen before we get his information and let him?
Yeah, I was going to say I totally agree with that, because we all come from source. We are so interconnected. But because of all the things that have been taught, as we grew up in this life, it kind of clouds things up. But there are those who are waking up to, questioning things, as we talked about before. It's just a lot of people has a lot of conflict especially when you're awake, you're aware of everything that's going on, and you have this conversation with the Christians. Because even I have lost family that belonged to a Christian thing, and I just kind of been outcasted because of my beliefs, because I live in a spiritual way. It's always been a conflict, but I don't let it be a conflict. I just kind of let things roll off my back, because I'm looking at things from a different angle. I just have to live by a special, example, as a loving being to all creatures, to everyone. So I just stay out of their conflicts.
Mm-hmm. Looks like we're down to 10 minutes, huh, or less?
Yeah. So I want you to go ahead and be able to, give people a chance to hear about your radio show, where they can find that, the date and time, also how they can contact you on social media or through your email, and anything.
Sure. Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody that tuned in, that has stuck around and listened to the whole broadcast. And if you want to access any of my information, there's a ton of stuff on YouTube that I've done, lectures and radio shows and what have you. And all you really need to do is Google my name, Stephen D. Kelly, Kelley. It's all there. And yeah, I do have a radio show on Revolution Radio. My main show is on Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern, and I do call-in shows. I've got a call-in show tonight at 2 a.m. Eastern. But, and I have some really great guests, of course. But the name of the book, if you want to help me spread the message, I don't say if you want to help me economically, but if you want to help me spread the word, the book's only $7, and it's on Amazon Kindle. And if you don't have Kindle, you can download a program, so that you can look at it on your computer or your iPhone or whatever. For free. But the name of the book is Cities Under the Plain, and obviously that's a reference. That's actually from a passage in the Bible, and it's referencing the Getty, of course, obviously. But there's tons of information in there, and if you want to, just see what led me to my waking up, that's all in there, and I think that if you do read it, you will certainly. It's going to shatter whatever you're clinging on to. So yeah, if you want to support me, just go to Amazon Kindle and do a search for either my name, Stephen D. Kelly, or the name of the book, Cities Under the Plain. And I don't expect to sell a bunch of these things. I think a big day for me is selling like 8. I sell 5, I get all excited. So I'm not going to get rich off of this, clearly. I certainly could not survive, but it would be fun if it became a bestseller, but that's not going to happen. But I encourage everybody to read it just so that you can get the information and share the information and just be advised, they don't want you to read this book. So if you want to stick it to the bad guys, read it and share the information with your friends and family.
Right. Well, and we've already got people in chat that are saying that they want to now, after hearing this broadcast, they want to go out and order it. So I'm sure you'll see some new ones. So maybe you'll be all excited by tomorrow.
Woohoo!
You could do the happy dance.
I know. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, if like 30,000 people just decided to buy it.
that would be awesome.
That'd be pretty cool.
Just remember to give me a shout out if that happens.
But everybody needs to understand though that I'm not doing this to make money. I mean, this is all about serving others and sharing the truth, and that's it. That's my priority, because I'll tell you, I had money. I had the big house. I had the 4 cars. I had the, all the toys. It's all gone, and I can't even imagine going back to owning a bunch of stuff anymore. I don't want to own my own house and fill it with furniture and all this crap. I don't need that anchor.
Right. And you see how that it puts out to society that the American dream, to be here and work hard and have all these things, and again, it's such the wrong, message. It's not about the things. It's not about the money. It's not about any of that. It's really about, helping others.
That's right.
It really is. And the information is what's important, not how, much money is made or any of that. And believe me, I know Stephen, he's been a friend of mine for a few years now, and it's absolutely, that is not what he's, interested in getting the information out. And I'm, so glad that you came on tonight, Stephen, so that we could get this information out again. I know that this book has newly been, put out again, and so I think that it's actually a great timing, for it, because I think that there are so many more people that maybe when it came out the first time weren't really ready for this information, and I think that now, we are at a different time, and people are interested just by the reaction we're getting in chat. So, I definitely wish you, all the luck in the world, and of course we will always stay friends as long as we, are both around in contact. And I will see you in Los Angeles in just a few short months. So I can't wait to see you.
Very good. Well, I look forward to it, and I appreciate you having me on the show. Thank you, Renee, and all you listeners out there. Thank you for joining us and listening to what I had to say.
Oh, yeah, it's our pleasure. And, anytime you've always got an open door policy with you, anytime you have a topic or something, interesting that, you want to get the word out, absolutely let me know. I'd love to
hey, I'm thinking about doing an event out here next spring or summer. I actually want to put on my own event, so keep your eyes out for that. Oh, if anybody wants to join me on Facebook, I got room for another 1,000 people or so.
Oh, you must have done a big cleaning job, because I know you were at your max, right?
Well, I had about 4,050, and I've been deleting people left and right because of, they were pro-genocide in Israel and all this nonsense going on. I mean, the Gaza issue, I'm not going to tolerate anybody that says, using scripture to defend Israel's slaughter of people in Gaza right now, and Islamophobes and everything else. Obviously that's left.
Well, but you know what? Sometimes you do. Sometimes you have to just kind of go in and clean it out. I've been doing that as well, because it's like I've got, I think, 4,915, I think, at the last count or something, and I was getting close to 5,000, and I just started deleting, because again, I don't have time for negativity. I don't have time to sit and argue and debate anything and everything with everybody. It's just not worth it. And I do notice that, once they started putting, you start putting information out, you start putting this information out, you are going to, become under attack, from all different angles. And I'll tell you, sometimes it's hard to endure, but, again, if you if you understand the background of everything that's going on, it makes all the sense in the world. So, interacting and doing all that, it's just easier just to delete these people and keep that negativity out of the circle.
Pretty much.
Well, good. Make sure that you go to Stephen D. Kelly's Facebook page. Make sure to add him. Let him know you heard him on Paranormal Paranormal Connections.
Wow.
And beyond. And, I've had him on both, so. But make sure to check him out, and absolutely make sure to get his book. I have been wanting to read the book and didn't get a chance over the last couple of days, so myself, I'm going to be reading and reviewing it as well. So I'll be.
Well, let me just say this before the show's over. If you can't afford the $7 for the book and you just really, really want to read it, send me an email and I will hook you up. Seriously, I'm not. It's not about the money. $7 is nothing, but obviously I don't have $7, but seriously, I don't have $7. I have nothing.
But that's amazing that you would offer to do that, because, again, it is about the information, and there are a lot of people who will keep that information quiet in order, just to get those dollars. So that's
real quick, my email is law17gun@AOL.com, LAW17GUN @AOL.com.
All right, awesome. And we'll put Stephen D. Kelly's all of his links up on our Aliens, UFOs, and Beyond page so that you can check him out and be able to find him. And we want to thank all of our listeners tonight. Again, we've had an amazing amount of listeners. We've also had great people in our chat, and we appreciate each and every one of you that you come back every single week. So we'll be back next week with another amazing episode, and make sure to be back with us to join us. Good night, everybody. Thanks so much again, Stephen, and thanks to you too, Renee.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody. Take care.
Clear?